It's been a day of tension in the Middle East after Tehran fired a series of ballistic missiles at two Iraqi air bases where U.S. troops are living. It was Iran's most direct confrontation with the United States since the seizing of American hostages in the aftermath of the Islamic Revolution more than 4 decades ago. Today saw oil prices reach a 4-month high and airlines move quickly to keep their flights out of the area. Now, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei calls the strike a slap on the face for Washington. He says it is important to end America's corrupting presence in the region. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says while the U.S. may have cut off the arm of General Soleimani, America's, quote, leg in the region would be cut off in response. Airlines have begun diverting flights from Iranian airspace. Singapore Airlines says its flights to Europe are being rerouted. The carrier says it's monitoring the situation closely and will make appropriate adjustments. Taiwan's EVA Air and Malaysia Airlines are doing the same. Now, the Philippines has responded by issuing its highest level alert. Manila is urging the immediate repatriation of its citizens. Cargo planes and a ship have been dispatched to help evacuate around 1,600 Filipino migrant workers in Iraq.
We have correspondents in Iran and the United States. First to Tehran, Omid Kazani tells us there's concern about the possibility of a full-scale conflict with America.
There is no such tendency inside the country, but the point is, in the current situation, can we avoid a full-front confrontation between Iran and the United States? The answer is uncertain, because the tensions are quite high and escalation is day by day increasing. Unless there is a serious effort to have de-escalation efforts in the region, there is always a chance for full-front confrontation. It was a huge blow and shocking blow. I mean, killing General Soleimani, who was extremely popular in Iran, it was a blow to public dignity. And as you saw in the funeral across the country, there was a public demand for revenge and vengeance. That was just kind of emotional. Public supported, but at the same time, there is uncertainty among ordinary Iranians that no one wants a full-front confrontation, a war between Iran and the United States, which will be devastating.
And Simon Marks joins us from Washington, D.C. right now. Simon, we're hearing conflicting reports from the U.S. and Iran to those airstrikes. Do we have any clearer idea? Do we know of any American casualties in these strikes?
There's been no word, Glenda, as yet from the Pentagon about casualty figures. The Defense Secretary Mark Esper, late last night here in the United States, said that the initial battlefield assessments were still being carried out by U.S. officials, both here in the United States and on the ground. And I think this issue of casualties is going to be absolutely key, because if indeed there have been American casualties, and again, there's no word of that at all, but if there have been, it will become much more likely that President Trump finds himself in a situation where he will decide to respond militarily than if there have not been American casualties. So we're waiting to hear for news of that. President Trump, as you know, is due to be making a statement here on what occurred overnight U.S. time within the course of the next few hours. No precise timing on that. There was consideration given at the White House last night to the possibility of the president making an Oval Office address to the nation within hours of those airstrikes by the Iranians, those missiles landing on U.S. air bases inside Iraq. In the event, the White House decided to keep its powder dry. Top U.S. officials huddled with the president in the West Wing of the Oval Office. Then they returned to their respective offices, Mike Pompeo at the State Department and Mark Esper at the Pentagon. And then by around 11:30 midnight Washington time, all of those top officials had gone home. And we're in that sort of rarest of moments at this very second, Glenda, where social media channels, Twitter particularly, is being used by the Iranian and the American side in a bid to damp down some of the rhetoric rather than kick it up a notch. So you had the Iranian foreign minister taking to Twitter last night, insisting that Iran's military action had concluded. He described it as proportionate. And President Trump, for his part, putting out that Twitter statement that began with the words, "All is well." Very uncharacteristic for both sides to be using social media to try and lessen the temperature and lower the rhetoric. And some here in Washington think that's an indication that, provided there are no substantial American casualties on the ground in Iraq, this gives President Trump an opening to de-escalate rather than escalate the crisis.
Well, thanks, Simon. Indeed, we will be keeping our eye out for U.S. President Trump's speech later on. But we'll have more on the impact on oil prices and what we can expect in the days ahead later on Asia Tonight. We've been speaking to our correspondent, Simon Marks, in Washington, D.C.